What does it mean to be dominant? I've played at the highest level. I've received the highest award.
Thank you.
But those things did not make me dominant. On this show, I want to interview people from various backgrounds and careers to see what made them dominant. That's why I decided to partner up with Mission Winnow. Together, we want to promote progress and achievement while sharing real stories of struggle and success. We want to acknowledge the challenges in front of us, but we also want to pivot towards improvement and positivity.
Everything is going to work out.
We are the dominant ones. We dunk on the world. We don't let the world dunk on us.
So every year I put one thing on my calendar that's really big, that challenges me, that I don't think I can, necessarily, it's way out of my comfort zone. This year I did a race called the Last Man Standing. I just did it. So it's a 4.2 mile loop. You have an hour to complete it. If you finish it in 50 minutes, you can wait. You have a 10-minute rest. They line you up every hour until one person's left.
That is truly amazing. I don't know if personally I could have done that after about a mile.
Dunk.
I'd have been done,
I can't dunk.
Neither can I. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Hat on top cause we think excellent. Frames on straight cause I see excellent. Dress for success cause I be excellent. Everything we do, everything we do.
Hey Jess, what's up, man? Appreciate you coming, man. Thanks, man. So Jess, thanks again for coming, man.
My
I
pleasure.
Appreciate coming to my home.
Of course,
and
man.
First of all, I know you as a big time rapper. You know?
Big time.
Big
I wouldn't
time.
say big time.
Well, a lot of people who knew within the rap game, they know who you are, and so it was really intriguing for me. And when I heard you was a former rapper, so what really got you into rap?
Well, I grew up in, it's funny you mentioned that because I was just telling the story the other day. I remember when my album came out in 91, and I just did Club MTV, which was a big show on MTV. It was like a highlight for me. I was on top of the world, and I got out to do my first show in Pittsburgh, and I got out, and when I walked off the airplane, I looked at the newsstand, and on the newsstand, on the cover of Rap Pages, which is like the equivalent of being on the cover of Forbes magazine in business, was my picture, and I'm like, what? This is the craziest thing ever, man. I'm on the cover of Rap Pages. So I grabbed the magazine, and the cover of the title with my picture on it was, "Are white rappers ruining hip hop?" So I would say, when I talk about my rap career, man, I think it was.
But that's when they were, guys were just breaking into rapping, man. They wasn't used to seeing that.
No. I grew up in New York in the 80s, so I got really into just hip hop in general, the culture. I was surrounded by it, like in my town, and I got into it. And I got lucky. I got a record deal with a company called Delicious Vinyl as a writer originally, and then I put my own record out. And then it didn't go as planned, which was the best thing that ever happened to me.
So how long did you really stay in the rap game when you said to yourself, okay, this could be a long career for me?
Well, I made a classic mistake that every entrepreneur makes. Like, my only goal was to get a record deal. So once I got the record deal, I didn't reset my goals. As an entrepreneur, you want to check the box and go to the next and keep climbing. You MVP, champion, you want to keep going. Once I got my record deal, I took my foot off the gas pedal. So I made a very big mistake at a young age, and it was a good lesson. I got dropped from my label at 22. But I stayed in the game. I managed Run DMC for a while. 50 was my intern before he was 50 Cent. Worked super close with Dougie Fresh and Dana Dane, all the guys I grew up with.
Some powerhouse guys.
I got a chance to, work super close with, and many of them were at my wedding years later. So I built amazing relationships and friendships, and it was a great chapter in my life from probably, my record deal 21 to 25-ish. But I had a lot of, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I didn't know that at the time.
Right.
And I was able to reinvent myself in music. So I started out in rap, as an artist, then as a manager. But then I wrote theme songs for professional sports teams. I did the I Love This Game campaign for the NBA.
I never knew that.
Yeah, in
wow.
'93. That won an Emmy. And so I was able to kind of stay in it in different lanes.
So the next chapter in your life, you know, you got into rapping, you got into producing, and then you started getting into the jet business.
Yeah.
What brought that?
Like most things in my life, it wasn't planned. You know, I was a guest, 27 years old. I was a guest on a private jet. And when I walked onto the airplane, the private plane, it was like the scene in The Wizard of Oz when everything goes from black and white to color. I was like, people fly like this? And I was like, me, I gotta fly like this. And by the time we landed, my partner and I were like, let's start a private jet company so we can fly private, you know? Sort of kidding around, sort of serious. And I'm like, that's an amazing idea, but we had no airplanes.
Right.
So we took a meeting with the 800-pound gorilla NetJets, which is owned by Warren Buffett, 650 planes in the fleet. And we pitched him on this idea that we had called Marquee Jet, which is basically just, you get a 25-hour jet card, you prepay for it, you fly 2 hours, you have 23 hours left. This works like a debit card. And initially they threw us out of the room in 10 minutes, like we're not giving two 28-year-old kids access to our planes. But we were able to get a second meeting, and we brought in our own focus group. We set up a focus group by the boardroom table, and one by one, our focus group of athletes and entertainers stood up and said they would never buy a fraction what NetJets is selling, but they buy a 25-hour card. And they gave us a shot, and a year later, we were bigger than NetJets. We did $5 billion in sales, and we ended up selling that company. So it was
That's truly amazing.
It's a great lesson in how you don't need experience, you know, to get into an industry if you have an idea and passion.
See, that should have been around when I was playing. You know, we would have been flying probably.
Yeah.
You know, going to
No, it's a good thing
airports
you
and
weren't,
flying
was it?
commercial. Yeah, you're probably right. But flying commercial in those days as a team, man, was brutal.
Yeah.
You know, but it was just the way it was. But if we had those type of amenities back then, I can tell you a lot of guys would have flew private.
Yeah, you'd still be playing.
I'd still be playing, maybe. You know, it's almost 60 years old, right?
I was like, you look like you're reverse aging. I feel like I'm talking to a 30-year-old.
You know what, man? It's what you do, you know, outside of your normal everyday life. You know, I try to eat right. I try to exercise, and I make sure that I keep myself physically moving. I drink a lot of water.
Right.
A lot of water. You know, it kind of keeps your system pure. And so, you know, I'm very simple with the way I manage myself, but I tell people all the time, you gotta get physically moving. That's the only way you keep yourself healthy.
I think the best investment I've ever made in my life, even to this day, it's the number one thing I invest in is my health. I spend more time on that, you know, reading about it, eating properly. For 29 years, religiously, unwaveringly, I've only eaten fruit until 12 o'clock noon. So I've really, you know, it's like, imagine if you had $1 bazillion. You own sports teams and helicopters and planes, and you went to Hawaii, and you're in Hawaii and you're getting a massage and amazing setting. You have all the money in the world, but you got a sore throat. Every time you swallow, the only thing you think about, you don't think about your bank account.
No,
it's just your sore throat.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it eliminates everything. A little sore throat. If you compound that by like serious stuff, so there's nothing more important, man.
I just want to know who is your top 5 rappers of all times.
I'm being recorded on this. I'm on record here.
Yeah, you're on record.
Listen, I'm a 80s, early 90s New York hip hop guy. So it was Rakim. For me, group-wise, Run DMC, Rakim. I'm a big Daddy Kane fan. I'm a big Cool G Rap fan, and I'm an Eminem fan, man. I'm not saying they're the top 5 ever, but those are the 5 that really, you know, inspired me. Yeah,
absolutely. There it is. There it is. You know, I think we have a lot in common when it comes to things in life that is most important to us. And I've seen all the things you do, from philanthropy to what you've done in your career, and you know, the jet company with, and it just seems like it's never-ending things that you're involved in, and so that's very inspiring. So, some of the things that you're into now that's important to you, what are some of those things that brings you that kind of passion?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in building your life resume. I've always felt like it's more important to have a big life resume than a traditional resume, which is important. But if you think about it, the average American works 40-hour work week, so that's only about 25% of the week. You know, you have all these hours in a week, and we invest so much in work, but I'm a big believer investing outside of that as well. So for me, I'm just driven by creating experiences. I've always invested in experiences. I've always found that, like, the more you experience, the more you can offer. And so at this age, I just turned 51. When I look at 51, the average American lives to be 78. When I look at that window, I hope I'm not average, but when I look at that window of what potentially is left, it's just like, how do I maximize that? And that's how I attack life. Like, how do I maximize this small window that I have left? And it's a combination of businesses that and projects that inspire me, and family and friends and experience. I just ran a big ultra marathon. Just putting more on my plate of the things I love to do with the people I love to do.
I don't think that's the thing that most impressed me about you is what you do as far as health, and how you really put yourself out there and give people an example to do some of the things in life they want to do. But you have to do it through health, because if you're not healthy, how can you be successful really in life long term if you're not really take care of yourself? And so every day I'm constantly moving. I'm doing something, because I think when you move a lot, it keeps you healthy.
Without question. So we are alike in that sense, because I'd say I've had this rule since I'm 21 years old. I take 3 hours a day for myself. And when I tell people that, they're like, oh, you must have a team of nannies. And I don't have a team of nannies, man. It's cumulative. It's like I might take a 20-minute walk. I might sit and do, but you have to take time during the day. If you can't take 10% of the day for yourself, you got to like look at your life model a little bit. So for me, I've always just carved out time. I schedule my day the night before. My day today started last night. When I mapped out. I don't wing it. I don't wake up and just like, man, I'm gonna wing it today. I wake up.
You got to be prepared.
Yeah, you got to have your thing, and then you just go and you go through it all.
I'm wondering, and I want to ask you, if there's anything you would change if you had to go back into your youthful years.
You know, I got married older. I made money younger. So now that I have kids, I put myself in a position. Shame on me if I don't take advantage of the time that I've created for myself. But, you know, of course I have regrets. I have a lot of regrets, because when you're growing up, you don't, my dad owned the plumbing supply house. I slept on 18 couches of friends when I was trying to make it in the music business. I had no guidance really as far as that kind of stuff. I made a lot of foolish mistakes as it relates to business.
And we all.
We did. But I wouldn't change any of that. I look at it more like, what can I prevent in the future? If you love spending time with your older kids, then then make sure you do it. And I look at it like, the way I kind of like to look at this stuff is I like to go out. I'll think in moments, not years. So let me give you an example. My parents are 88 years old, 89. They live in Florida. So let's say my parents live 6 more years. I only see them twice a year. I don't have 6 years with them. I have 12 visits with them. So when you start to look at things like that, it changes. Those 12 visits become way more valuable.
Exactly.
So I look at things in moments and not years.
So Jesse, what does dominance mean to you in your life?
Well, I equate dominance with success. And to me, success means being good at multiple things. I think a lot of people think success means making a lot of money or whatever. I know a lot of people that are just rich. And all they are is rich. So I think it's really, when I look at dominance, it's like living life for a living. To me, it's living life for a living. It's, do you have adventure? Do you have relationships? Do you have business? Do you have health? Are you a mentor? Do you help strangers? All of that, to me, is, if you can do that, man, you're dominating life.
No, you're absolutely right, because most people, when they look at dominance, and you're right, they think it's all about money. And dominance is much more than that. It's about life. It's about being dominant in life, how you help, not just help yourself, but help others to be successful at something, and you do it consistently over a long period of time. So that's my mission, is to see people create options for themselves, so they can create their own dominance in their own life. And it's not just about wealth. It's about lifestyle. It's about giving back, because that's a big component of being dominant.
I think anyone can do it. I think if your head hits the pillow at the end of the night, and you look back, because you can really dummy it down to just the day.
Yeah.
If your head hits the pillow at the end of the night, and you said like, okay, man, I helped somebody today, or I did something with my kids, or something. I dominated the day in this particular lane. It's nothing to do with money.
Right.
That's a win. And why can't you do that every day? You know? And I try to, man. I really, at the end of the day, I take the inventory and think about, like, did I dominate it today?
Right. Well, you know, I hope people, after seeing this, really go back and look at their own lives. So, you know what? That was a great example on how I should kind of formulate my life and look at my life as more of a giver than a receiver. Because when you give, you're always going to receive. So, man, I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. Thank you so much, man.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. No doubt. Thanks a lot. That's the Dominant Project.